Two big stories that just won't go away. This whole kerfuffle over using Signal to have conversations in the Trump administration. Is it really that big of a deal? Well, we're going to break down the latest on it because this story won't go away. Wish it would. It's sort of a nothing burger. But then there's Jasmine Crockett, and she just won't go away, and we don't want her to go anywhere. Stay right there on the platform, leader of the Democrat Party. Also, one guy we will just die if he goes away, Senator John Kennedy, with one of his trademark grilling of a nominated lawyer. Is it a lawyer, I think, for a judge bench? I'm not sure what she's being grilled for, actually, in the Senate, but Kennedy absolutely destroys her, and you're going to see every bit of it. Oh, and a guy we thought who went away, Joe Biden, is back in the news because someone who worked in the press office at the Biden White House tells us exactly how corrupt it was, with questions and answers being pre-approved. Everything we knew was going on has been validated, and you're going to hear all about it right from the horse's mouth coming up right now. We are brought to you by Birch Gold, and we appreciate that. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Moonshine. Tariff wars, recession fears, stubborn inflation that just won't quite go away. In this environment, gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs. Go ahead and check it out yourself. Doing pretty strong. In volatile markets like this, don't sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. Take control and safeguard your savings. It's why so many Americans today are turning to Birch Gold Group. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. Is it time for you to find out if you can hedge against inflation and economic instability with gold? I think it is. To learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account, text my name, Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, to 989898. Birch Gold is going to send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Just text my name, Larry, to the number 989898. Who's Birch Gold? Well, they've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They've got a myriad of 5-star reviews. I count on Birch Gold. You should too. It took us decades to get into this tangled economic mess they're trying to unpack right now. How long is it going to take to get out of it, and at what cost? Why don't you take control of what you can control? Your personal finances. Get this information. Text Larry to 989898. Do it today. She is, in fact, the gift that keeps on giving. She is Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas. We played this for you yesterday. We spent a little bit of time on it because there was a whole lot coming out of this appearance. But let's just remind you of this little clip when she started talking about the governor of Texas.
We in these hot ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
Governor Hot Wheels. Of course, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is confined to a wheelchair because he suffered a cataclysmic accident in his 20s that left him paralyzed. And Jasmine Crockett, at the Human Rights Campaign Gala, decided to mock him for his disability. By the way, we've heard nothing about this from the Human Rights Campaign, because apparently if you're a Trump-loving conservative Republican and you're confined to a wheelchair and you have a disability, it's okay to mock you. It's not a violation of the ethics and morals of the Human Rights Campaign. Okay, well, Governor Abbott, in his cheerful Happy Warrior style, took to Hannity last night and responded to the fine congresswoman from his state.
A friend of mine. I take it personally when friends of mine are attacked viciously for no reason. And there's no way in hell that this woman and her ex-post is going to convince me she meant anything other than what we all believe it to be. Your reaction?
Well, Sean, is another day and another disaster by the Democrats. The reality is they have no vision, no policy. They have nothing to sell but hate. And Americans are not buying it. It's one reason why Texas is going to remain red and why Republicans are going to continue to win elections across the country. The fact, Sean, is that Texas is actually in direct contrast to what she was talking about. Texas has ranked #1 for the most new jobs in America over the past month, #1 for the most new jobs over the past year, and for several years. Texas ranks #1 for the most new economic development projects for 13 years in a row. CEOs who run businesses have ranked Texas the best state for doing business for 20 years in a row. And Texas is in the vanguard as it concerns the future of the United States, such as space exploration, such as artificial intelligence, such as semiconductors, as well as power generation. The bottom line is that Republican states like Texas are leading the way, and with comments like this by Democrats, we will just leave them in the dust in future elections.
All right. Now, he is right about the flailing Democrat Party right now, unable to get a message. And what did he say? They lack a vision. Well, let's face it. If you're Jasmine Crockett, it's kind of hard to have vision when this is your view all the time, when you're looking at things, when you have those giant sort of black widow tarantulas adhered to your eyelids. Is that, look at me, everyone. I'm Jasmine Crockett. Look at me. You're going to grab that for a short, aren't you? Aren't you, Kevin? Maybe the highest point of my broadcast career right there. Send that to the Hall of Fame. Apparently, the elder statesmen, if there are any left, the dignified ones in the Democrat Party, they picked up the phone and texted Jasmine Crockett, because no one calls anyone anymore, and said, hey, you got to clean up this mess, Jazzy. Do you think her friends call her Jazzy? And so she decided to put out a non-apology explanation that isn't really an explanation and actually riddled with lies as a statement. Here it is. Rep Jasmine said, I wasn't thinking. Well, honestly, that's all she needed to say. TLDR on the rest of this. I wasn't thinking pretty much covers it, but we'll let the good Congresswoman of Texas continue. I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes. Hold on a second there. She called him Governor Hot Wheels, and she says, well, I wasn't thinking about the wheelchair. I was thinking about planes. Because, when you think about an airplane, the first thing that comes to mind is wheels, right? Those flying machines immediately conjure the image of wheels. I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles. Good movie, by the way. He used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors, deliberately stoking tension and fear among the most vulnerable. Well, at least she's conceding the fact that bringing illegal immigrants into those cities are a problem, because they're draining city resources and they're ticking off the people who live in those cities, who don't get a park or don't get a school because they've been thrown out to accommodate the illegal immigrants. What she doesn't recognize, or just chooses not to point out, is the vast majority of illegal immigrants sent to Chicago and New York and Washington, D.C. and Boston were actually flown there by the Biden administration, not the planes, trains, and automobiles from Governor Hot Wheels. Okay, so that's her explanation. I wasn't disparaging him or saying anything negative about him because he's in a wheelchair. It was really my commentary on what he did by transferring illegal immigrants to other cities. Okay, let's remember that that's her excuse. We're gonna dive into that in just a few moments. First, though, earlier this morning on the Vince Cogliane's podcast, Donald Trump was a special guest, and the topic turned to Rep Jasmine from Texas.
She lies, but she's a lowlife. And she's a very low IQ person and a lowlife. And I don't imagine the Democrats are going to have a person like that running their party. If they do, and they'll never win an election again. It would be very hard. But I can't imagine she's going to last long.
And what do you think of Governor Gavin Newsom's?
To be smart, you do need a brain. You can't get around with little quips. And I've watched her. I've only heard of her for the last couple of days, and I watched her make a speech, and she can't speak. And she truly is a low-level person on the very important chart of intelligence.
Yeah.
And really, it's nice to have intelligent people running your operation.
Yeah. So somebody you can talk to, who you could have a good conversation with.
She was a comedian. I couldn't believe she was a congressman or whatever she is. and no, I thought she was a comedian.
That's unbelievable.
And she was sort of a little bit funny, but crude. And now I find out she's actually a politician, who the Democrats are going to suffer with this one.
Good job, Vince, on that one. Does he have a cold, by the way, the president? Did he sound a little congested? Actually, he sounded a little like he was on cold medicine. He's usually pretty sprite. Sounded a little drowsy. All right, so that's the president. Punching back on Jasmine Crockett. She's a lowlife and on the low level of the intelligence chart, which I think is a great way of calling her stupid and scummy. So last night, our favorite, Scott. Honestly, this could be a 60-minute Scott Jennings show here, which is something CNN should think about, by the way. Scott Jennings remarked on Jasmine Crockett, the new leader of the Democrat Party.
I don't know how the Democrats came to appoint Jasmine Crockett as the unquestioned leader of your party, but thank God. And I think what she should do is go on TV twice as much as she is right now, maybe 3 times as much. Because every time she appears and makes one of these mistakes, says something radical, it only further divides her party from the rest of the other 80% of America who can't stand this. But the problem is there's an audience for it. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's audience cheering on Tesla vandalism. I hear the Daily Show audience cheering on attacks on Elon Musk. I hear the human rights audience cheering on an attack on a man in a wheelchair. And I realize this is what the left has become. An angry mob of people who are cheering on attacks on a guy in a wheelchair and vandalism against people who bought a Tesla. It's pathetic. No lesson could ever be learned as long as you're doing these things in front of audiences who roar when you do it. When you have comedians who are broad messengers for the left making Scott, unfair jokes and people are roaring. When you have politicians being vulgar and saying what's the lesson? What's the audience? It says a lot about the audience.
Yeah, and no, we're not going to hear what Van Jones had to say because it doesn't matter. It's just going to be whataboutism and, oh, but Trump says this, and apparently that makes it okay, which is really probably great, actually. Hey, Jasmine Crockett is just like Trump. Okay, I thought you said Trump was Hitler. So that's your answer? That's your excuse? Okay, you want to go with that, that's fine. I don't think she's going to win a national election and clear all of the swing states and win the popular vote, but we welcome the opportunity to run against her on a presidential ticket. And make no mistake, you thought that was Scott Jennings just trolling the Democrats there, saying, I don't know how you decided that she would be your leader, but God bless you, let's bring her on. He's not trolling. I mean, just ask the aforementioned Jasmine Crockett.
Right now, we have so many people talking about who is our leader, who is our leader. Let me tell you, the person that you've been waiting for is sitting right here.
I mean, she's sitting right here. I mean, is that her way of saying that she's the leader? Is that her? Or does she mean, look in the mirror? I'm looking to the man in the mirror. Is that what this is? I don't think so. I don't think she's that sort of layered and nuanced. No, I think she thinks she's now the leader of the party. All right, so let's get back to the excuse. What was that explanation she had again? Oh, it's so good. I wasn't thinking. That's right. I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by Black mayors. Okay, so she wasn't thinking about the fact that he was in a wheelchair when she called him Governor Hot Wheels. She was thinking about the poor illegal immigrants. Great, fine, wonderful explanation, except for that pesky thing called the internet, which, as you know, is forever. Peter Hassan, who does some reporting for the Washington Free Beacon, went back and looked at the social media habits of said Jasmine Crockett. And apparently, in 2021, well before Governor Abbott was sending illegal immigrants into Chicago or New York or Washington, D.C., there was a Facebook post that referred to Governor Abbott as Hot Wheels, and Jasmine Crockett liked that comment. So not only is she lying about the excuse, she's obviously called this man Governor Hot Wheels multiple times. This is just the first time it was caught on microphone, not accidentally, through her own hubris and arrogance, work in the room. Not only has she lied about this, but also apparently it's not even her own original nickname. She stole it from some rando who was commenting on a Facebook post, and she liked it. Literally liked it. This woman's a disaster. It's fantastic. Even the Dallas Morning News editorial board is coming after Texas's favorite daughter. The Dallas Morning News said Crockett has made a habit of demonstrating that she can't or won't discern the kind of decorum her office should demand. And because she represents Dallas, it reflects poorly on the rest of us. You think? Now, I just saw someone in our live chat here remind me that she's not technically from Texas. She's from Missouri, which apparently, she couldn't win there because Cori Bush was such a rock solid star. So she decided to move to Dallas. But guess what? She literally represents you, Texas. She literally represents Dallas. And so it's on you. You still want to be represented by her? You need to do something about it. You can't say, well, she's not really one of us. She's from Missouri. She's literally your representative. Let's let our very own colleague here at Town Hall Media, Katie Pavlich, have the last word on this. It's usually a good one. She was on Fox and Friends this morning.
To her comments first about the governor of Texas, how many people who are disabled does Jasmine Crockett represent? She is a congresswoman in the United States Congress. And yet she is now entered the attention economy. She's trying to not represent her people. She's trying to simply represent herself.
Well said, as always, Katie Pavlich. And I'll just finish it with this. I have an announcement to make. I am starting a super PAC, a 501c4, I believe is the right tax designation for it. I'll get all the details worked out soon. But it is a grassroots effort to raise money to recruit Jasmine Crockett to run for the Democrat nomination for President of the United States. I'll be the chairman of this entire fundraising operation, and we're going to start running ads. We're going to start a petition drive. It's going to be grassroots based. We are going to build a movement in this country to get that woman to be right where she belongs, as the standard bearer, face, voice, and eyelashes of the Democrat Party. I am going to raise millions of dollars with this venture, almost all of it coming from Republicans. Seeing Katie Pavlich there, by the way, reminds me it's a good time to tell you about a 50% discount you can get as a member, a VIP member of Town Hall Media. That's right. Katie Pavlich is our colleague there. She's the poobah at Town Hall. Ed Morrissey runs things at Hot Air. Jen Van Laar runs things over at Red State. We've got a great team, PJ Media, Twitchy, and of course, this program right here that you know and love. It's all part of the Town Hall Media ecosphere. And if you become a VIP member, first of all, you'll get 50% off if you use my name at checkout, but you'll also get an ad-free experience on all of those websites. You'll also get exclusive content just for VIP members, and you'll keep us going and keep us from being beholden to big tech and the advertising overlords that can turn off the spigot through their censorship protocols on a moment's notice. So help us out, support what we do, and get a great VIP experience at Town Hall Media. Go to any one of those sites and use my name, Larry, for 50% off, or just go straight to townhallvip.com. Thank you. All right, the big story that's still buzzing around Washington, D.C., which I'm convinced is really just kind of an inside the beltway sort of story, but it does have legs with people like you because you're pretty smart and you're plugged in on what's going on in politics in America. It's this whole thing about Trump's national security team using the Signal app to have a conversation prior to the attack on the Houthis about 10 days ago. Now, you'll remember this story originated from Jeffrey Goldberg, who has a history of bad news and fake stories coming out of the Atlantic. His day started yesterday with Jen Psaki on MSNBC and then a hit on CNN, and it was a blockbuster. It ended with Tim Miller from The Bulwark and a podcast that looks like it's done in their second bedrooms. Boy, that didn't take long for Goldberg to have to scrape the bottom of the media barrel. But Tim Miller is a friendly interviewer. He is a Trump hater. He runs things at the Bulwark, so that should tell you something. And so you'd think this interview would go well. You'd think wrong. You see, by the time this interview took place, the director of the CIA and the director of national intelligence, as we showed you on yesterday's show, told everyone that there was A, no classified information in these text messages, and B, the use of signal was completely authorized. So where's the story here? So Tim Miller asks a very logical question of Jeffrey Goldberg.
Now, the Secretary of Defense and the White House press secretary have said you're lying, have said there are no war plans there, have said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong. They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate Special Committees on Intelligence? Maybe. I don't know.
Wow. Well, you want to become my lawyer?
I'm throwing this out there, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, look.
I feel like no. I mean, I obviously, let me just put it this way: my colleagues and I, and the advice that and the people who are giving us advice on this have some interesting conversations to have about this.
Yeah.
But just because they're irresponsible with material doesn't mean that I'm going to be irresponsible with this material. And you know what? I could, whatever. I mean, you've had a long history, as I have, with dealing with them, and at moments like this, when they're under pressure because they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar or whatever, they will just literally say anything to get out of the moment, to get out of the jam, and that's okay. I get it. I get the defensive reaction, and but here's the thing: my obligation, I feel, is to the idea that we take national security information seriously. And maybe in the coming days, I'll be able to let you know that, okay, I have a plan to have this material vetted publicly, but I'm not going to say that now because there's a lot of conversations that have to happen about that.
Makes sense.
And all of my inclinations, as you can tell, including withholding the name of the CIA undercover officer, all of my inclinations are. I have a pretty clear standards in my own behavior of what I consider information that I consider to be in the public interest, even if it's technically classified or not. Information that's in the public interest and information that's not in the public interest, and I'm just going to I'm sticking to my principles here.
That is just painful. Look, even Tim Miller's like, dude, I'm trying to help you. And Goldberg's acted like he's Mike Wallace grilling him under the hot lights. Isn't it true? I mean, what the hell? Goldberg is like a defeated man. My favorite part of this, if I could just play it one more time, just since the very beginning.
I've said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong.
Okay, so this is my second favorite part. All right. That Tim Miller said, hey, the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, and the CIA Director have said there's no classified information, so just put the text out. And Jeffrey Goldberg says, no. I know better than them. They're wrong about that. I know for a fact that this stuff is classified. So he knows better. But then here's my very favorite part.
They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate Special Committees on Intelligence? Maybe.
That's it. That sigh, that exasperated expression of complete and total defeat. That look at his face. Oh, he was on top of the world just 12 hours ago because it's the first big scandal. They've got Trump. They've got him. And now it's, oh, God, why didn't I just decide to open that gas station in Des Moines? Oh, it's glorious. It's glorious when they flail around so bad and then they just lose. Honestly, I'll tell you something. This is such a nothing story that we weren't even going to spend time on it, except for relishing this. This is what spun me over. We need to enjoy this. Every time they think that there's so nothing to the story. We told you yesterday. All that this story has was there classified information that was inappropriately put out? No. Was it inappropriate to use Signal? No, it was authorized. How did Jeffrey Goldberg get into the text chain? That's the only part of this that needs to be worked out. Is that a scandal to bring down the president? No, especially if he worked some nefarious thing to get into it. Tangentially on top of that one, the how did he get into the chain? Why did he wait 10 days to release this? And he released it on the exact same day or the eve of the day that Tulsi Gabbard and John Radcliffe were testifying on Capitol Hill. That's fascinating. Why the wait? That said, as you just heard in that excruciating exchange on the Bulwark Tim Miller podcast, I don't know why anyone would watch this. You heard Jeffrey Goldberg say, I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll talk to the lawyers. Maybe we'll vet this stuff. I mean, I'm worried about releasing it because I think it's sensitive and classified. I don't want to, but I mean, we'll go through a long, arduous process before we release these text messages. 8 hours later, 8 hours later, they realized that they were completely and totally with this story, and they had to just dump this and get it out. So they ran with it today. They put the text message, and we're going to look at it together. But here's the headline. Tell me if you noticed something here. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. Shared. They didn't share it, dude. You were erroneously included and you took them. That's not sharing. All right, number one. But even more importantly, here are the what plans? Attack plans. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Yesterday's story told me that these were war plans. Everyone was talking about war plans. All the chyrons on CNN and MSNBC said war plans. And now in just 24 hours, they're not war plans anymore. Now they're attack plans. That's clever. All right, so here are the attack plans. Let's take a look. Houthi PC small group, 19 members. Not very small. Mike Waltz is the phone that added people to the group, right? All right. So if we can zoom in here, team establishing a principals group for coordination on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, is pulling together a Tiger team at deputies agency chief of staff level, following up on the meeting in the Situation Room this morning for action items. We'll be sending that out later this evening. A Tiger team, by the way, is basically deputies that each head of the department can assign to go and have a meeting prior to the principals coming in. In other words, the Secretary of Defense will say, okay, you're on the Tiger team for this meeting. And the CIA director will say, okay, you're on this one. So they're designated people to represent them in that Tiger team meeting, right? And Alex Wong, Deputy National Security Advisor, is the one who's sort of coordinating this. One suspects maybe he was the one who put together this chat group. I don't know. Please provide the best staff from your team. Okay, so then they all like chime in and say who. So Marco Rubio, that's Mar. Marco Rubio says Mike Needham for state, Andy Baker for VP, Joe Kent for DNI. So see, that's TG, that's Tulsi Gabbard. You see, this is kind of cool actually to look at this. I love that Hegseth is the only one who uploaded his profile picture to Signal. I don't know who does that. I'm on Signal and I don't have my profile picture on there. It's just LO, by the way. If you want to signal me, go ahead. That'll be fun. But so it's just kind of funny that Hegseth's the one who's got his headshot in there from Fox and Friends. All right. Michael Waltz says, team, you should have a statement of conclusions and taskings per the president's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. Okay, what does that mean? I told you this yesterday. High side is, in fact, a more secure, more encrypted communication platform. All right. I don't know if it's an electronic platform. I think it's just a term that they use for like how they transfer information so that they can read it in the SCIF and not be in any way compromised. Which is not what Signal is. Signal is encrypted and Signal is pretty safe, but it's still an over-the-market product, right? So there are vulnerabilities with Signal. So don't be sexting your secretary or anything. Well, you shouldn't be doing that at all. But you're certainly not safe with Signal. I don't know why I do that. When they refer to high side, so he is talking, Mike Waltz is saying right here that that other information has been delivered to all of these principals on a more secure channel. So that is an acknowledgement that there are certain things that shouldn't be discussed on Signal, but certain things that can be discussed on Signal. And now we I guess, are in a position to question their judgment as to whether the things they did share should have or shouldn't have. But it's sort of baked in the cake here in the beginning of this group text that Mike Waltz is acknowledging that this channel of information is for a certain kind of conversation, and the other stuff I'm sending you on high side. Okay, that's what high side means. Joint staff is sending this morning a more specific sequence of events in the coming days, and we will work with the Department of Defense to ensure COS OVP, and that's Chief of Staff, Office of Vice President, and POTUS are briefed. Okay, JD Vance jumps in. I'm sorry, I find this fascinating. It's sort of a peek inside the conversations that these people are all like bigger than life figures that we see on television, right? And now we get to hear how they talk to each other behind the scenes. And don't you find that kind of cool? I do. Vance comes in. Team, I'm out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we're making a mistake. 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. There's a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message. But I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself. Well, sorry, Jeffrey Goldberg blew that. But there's a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, et cetera. So Vance's sort of residence, like, why are we bailing Europe out? This is in their interest. And we run the risk of actually bringing up oil prices and stuff. This is cool stuff. Joe Kent jumps in. There's nothing time sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact same options in a month. The Israelis will likely take strikes and therefore ask us for more support to replenish whatever they use against the Houthis, but that's a minor factor. I'll send you the unclassified data we pulled from on BAM shipping. From CIA perspective, this is John Ratcliffe. We're mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for coverage on Houthi leadership. All right, here comes Pete Hegseth, SecDef, says, Vice President Vance, I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out in the economy, Ukraine peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused on, one, Biden failed, and two, Iran funded. Waiting a few weeks or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus to immediate risks on waiting. One, this leaks and we look indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart, and we don't get to start this on our terms. We can manage both. We're prepared to execute. And if I had final go or no go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see it as two things. One, restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest, and two, reestablish deterrence, which Biden cratered. All right, so that's fascinating exchange, right? There seems to be some concern about, J.D. Vance is expressing concern about the timing. Okay, back to the exchange. Oh, and SecDef finishes, but we can easily pause. And if we do, I will do all we can to enforce 100% OPSEC, operational security. I welcome other thoughts. Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor.
Hey, Larry, can you change the scene?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Look at me. I'm just moving forward. Appreciate it. The trade figures we have are 15% of global and 30% of container. It's difficult to break that down to U.S. specific because much of the container either going through the Red Sea still or around the Cape of Good Hope are components going to Europe that turns into manufactured goods for transatlantic trade to the United States. Isn't it fascinating that they have the granular information on trade routes and what kind of product is going through the Suez Canal and what's at risk and how it affects the economy? I mean, it actually makes me feel like we're in good hands knowing that they're like on top of data points like this. For whatever reason, I mean, I think so far this entire text exchange that has now been revealed, thank you, Jeffrey Goldberg, frankly makes the Trump team looks pretty good on how they deliberate and how they discuss these issues. Whether we pull the plug or not today, European navies do not have the capability to defend against the types of sophisticated anti-ship cruise missiles and drones the Houthis are now using. So whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the president's request, we are working with DoD and state to determine how to complete the cost associated and levy them on the Europeans. Waltz continues. As we stated in the first PC, We have a fundamental decision of allowing the sea lanes to remain closed or to reopen them now or later. We are the only ones with the capability, unfortunately. By the way, this is a good moment to pause and recognize the politics of this. Did you know that the Houthis had closed the shipping lanes in the Middle East and in the Gulf, thus crippling trade, mostly impacting European nations? It happened a while ago. You heard nothing about it. Where is our media? Where was the Biden administration outraged at this? Where was Lloyd Austin? Where was Antony Blinken? Where was Jake Sullivan or anybody? What did we do for the last 4 years? That's what this is about. This is about hammering the Houthis to reopen our shipping lanes. And yes, our Navy, our ships, the Stockdale and the Gettysburg, have been under fire from these Houthi terrorist scumbags for over a year now, taking incoming drone strikes and missile strikes. All right. From a messaging standpoint, we absolutely add this to a list of horribles on why the Europeans must invest in their defense. All right. Vance replies to Hegseth. If you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. This is, by the way, where the chain started, or one of the clips that Jeffrey Goldberg included, right? So in other words, Jeffrey Goldberg did not print any of the stuff that I just read in his original post. Why? He only grabbed this little thing where Vance says, I hate bailing out Europe, to make it look like, oh, look at, they're attacking our friends in Europe. But not the explanation as to how we got here. And there was nothing sensitive. There was nothing in the last text chains that I was just reading out to you that couldn't have been published by some analyst in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times over the last 2 months. All right, let's just make sure our messaging is right here, and that there are things we can do upfront to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities. We should do it. All right, Hegseth says to Vance, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. Again, this is what Jeffrey Goldberg printed in his original article. Interesting what he chose to print and what he didn't. That's revealing. This story is about Jeffrey Goldberg. The story is not about Signal. It's not about classified information. It's about Jeffrey Goldberg. But Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good a time as any given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. SM. Oh, Susie Mao, Chief of Staff.
Stephen Miller.
Oh, Stephen Miller. Thank you. That's Stephen Miller. Okay. Stephen Miller. As I heard it, the president was clear, green light. But we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement, e.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, I think he meant, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. SecDef says, agree. All right. Then Hegseth comes in with an update. Now, this is the only text on Signal that one could argue perhaps was of a sensitive nature, because it has some specifics with regard to armaments and some specifics with regard to timing. But again, if you're the Houthis, unless you know that you're in a building that's being targeted, this is really meaningless other than to let you know something's about to go down. All right. Time now 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM. We're a go for mission launch. 12:15 F-18s launch first strike package. 13:45 trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Notice how he doesn't name the target. He just says the target is at his location, right? So without the actual target information, this is not as, devastating. Is this great that Jeffrey Goldberg was included in this and now we all see this? Is it great? No, it's not great. This is not great. I wish this hadn't happened, but it's not what everyone is telling you on CNN and MSNBC. And frankly, when all is said and done, I don't think it's damaging. I think it sucks that we're talking about it instead of talking about some of the other stuff going on. I do like at the end of the day, the only people who are in danger because of all of this are the ones who were dead in a pool of their own despicable jihadist blood, and that's radical Islamic terrorists who deserve it. Also, strike drones launched. 1410 more F-18s launched second strike package. 1415 strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 1536 F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline. We're currently clean on OPSEC. Godspeed to our warriors. And Vance says, I will say a prayer for victory. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Am I wrong that some part of me wants to be in the room when this stuff is going down? Michael Waltz to the vice president. Building collapsed, had multiple positive IDs. Pete Carrillo and the IC, amazing job. Those are people within the intelligence community, and Pete Hegseth. Vance replied, what? Waltz said, typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy. We had positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. Vance says, excellent. And Waltz replies with emojis. That's still my favorite part of all of this. Is that Michael Waltz, former Green Beret, former congressman, now national security advisor, is using emojis with an American flag and an explosion. Good job, Pete, and the team. Team in Mar-a-Lago did a great job as well. Great work, all. Powerful start. CENTCOM was on point. Great job, all. Everyone's congratulating each other. Great job, great job, great job. That's it. That's the scandal. That's the secret messaging that Jeffrey Goldberg felt paralyzed to do anything about. That's what we're all supposed to think, that there's going to be that people should get fired, I'm told. Not one person got fired when 13 service members were murdered through the negligence of the Biden administration and the Lloyd Austin Pentagon at Abbey Gate during the Afghan withdrawal. Not one person got fired. But now apparently Pete Hegseth and Michael Waltz need to turn in their resignations because of what you just saw, what we just read together. As my friend Chris Plante said, were it not for double standards, the left would have no standards at all. And I told you how bad it was for Jeffrey Goldberg that he had to scrape the bottom of the media barrel showing up on that podcast with Tim Miller and the Bulwark yesterday. But I spoke too soon because it got even worse for him. He went to underneath the barrel. He's not on the bottom of the barrel. He's actually crawling around with the ants and the larvae, the maggots, underneath the barrel because he showed up on Morning Joe this morning, which I assure you has less viewers than Tim Miller's Bulwark podcast. And listen to where Jeffrey Goldberg is now on this story.
Wall Street Journal editorial board deemed that Witkoff's presence in Moscow perhaps the most disturbing part of all this. Senator,
let me read that really quickly. Sure. Witkoff was receiving these messages on the commercial app while in Moscow. This is security malpractice and adds to the building perception that Mr. Witkoff is out of his depth in dealing with world crises. Your response to the denials yesterday that these were war plans?
I don't know. I mean, Joe, if you and me and Mika and Jonathan were launching our Air Force to bomb some other show, maybe it's not a war. Maybe it's just a kinetic action. Maybe it's just an attack plan. Or the semantics here are ridiculous. Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous.
The semantics are ridiculous, yet he deliberately changed his own headline to accommodate the ridiculous semantics from war plan to attack plan. But I've got more on this. Hang on a sec.
They're putting anybody with common sense can understand that is highly sensitive information, especially before an attack. So they can play a semantic game, but it's just silly. It's not, you know what it is? It's not serious. It's like, this is national security in the United States. The Houthis are a terrible group of terrorists. Like you have to be serious about confronting these challenges to the security of the United States. This is not, the administration right now is not engaged in a particularly serious conversation.
Oh, really? Ask the Houthis about that. You know, the Houthis that the Biden administration, who apparently was really serious about this stuff, let live and thrive and continue to menace our ships and European ships in those trading routes that they shut down. Was that serious? Because I think actually bombing them to meet their 72 virgins in the afterlife is pretty damn serious. But let me go back to the beginning here because this thing about Steve Witkoff and a phone, what you just saw here is literally fake news. Joe Scarborough would have you think that Steve Witkoff had his little, Google Pixel or Apple iPhone in Moscow with him at the time while he was engaged in this phone conversation, right? That's what they're saying.
The board deemed that Witkoff's presence in Moscow perhaps the most disturbing part of all this.
Senator, let me read that really quickly.
Sure.
Witkoff was receiving these messages on the commercial app while in Moscow. This is security malpractice and adds to the building perception that Mr. Witkoff is out of his depth in dealing with world crises.
Yeah, so they're just trying to find a scalp, and now apparently they're aiming at Witkoff for using his iPhone while in Moscow engaging in this conversation on Signal. What Scarborough and MSNBC neglected to tell their viewers, I will fill in now for you. Yes, Mr. Witkoff was in Moscow, and yes, he engaged in this conversation on Signal, but it was not his personal phone. It wasn't his over-the-counter phone that he brought with him. In fact, he left his phone back home. He was utilizing a device that was handed to him by the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. While he was there in Russia, he was only to use that safe, secure, encrypted device that the United States government, State Department, probably CIA, at the embassy handed him. But that little detail is just too much for the Morning Joe crowd to grasp, or certainly too much for Morning Joe himself to grasp. But I knew you could handle it because you know how to handle the truth. Well, that's the latest on this big scandal. We've broken it down. We've read it all. We've seen the lies. We've seen the disintegration of Jeffrey Goldberg's career. The only question that remains now, honestly, that really should get an answer is how in the hell did that scumbag get included in this text chain? We get the answer to that. We get the answer to a lot of things. You see me drinking out of this great mug all morning long. You know what it is? It's a Larry mug, and you're jealous. I know you are. Well, here's two things that you need to know. Number one, you don't need to be me to have this mug. And number two, you don't even have to be named Larry. You can go to the Town Hall merch store and take a look at all the stuff we've got there. We got a lot of good stuff. We got a lot of good shirts. We got a lot of good mugs. We got a lot of good travel mugs. But the best thing, of course, is the Larry mug. You can have your own Larry mug. You can drink whatever beverage you want out of it. Today, I've picked moonshine. And then when people look at it and they say, wait a second, your name's not Larry, you can say, no, it's not. But you can call me Larry. And then, we've rebranded the show, and it's a good thing. Thanks. Check it out. The link is in the description, the show notes on this very video you're watching at this very moment.
Hey, Larry, can I interrupt with a
Yes, sir.
breaking super chat real quick?
What you got, baby? Holy crap, Bruce. Bruce Langworthy, Carnivore Me. I'm doing Carnivore, big guy, with a phenomenal $100 super chat. I'd never seen that much money before in my life. Hi, Larry. My wife and I love your show and the fact that you do not try and tell us what to think and do a great job with supporting info. Keep up the great work. God, that is honestly, even without the $100, that's one of the nicest things I've seen today, because that's exactly what we try to achieve here. Bruce, thank you so much. What a incredibly generous gesture. And I'm going to make sure that I give at least 10% of that to Kevin for his efforts.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. That's fantastic. I feel truly honored. Thank you, guys. Wow. Huge. All right. So we're finally starting to see some of the rats that left the Biden sinking ship speak out. We've been hoping for the tell-all books and the exclusive interviews about how bad things really were. Now, listen, we don't have a top dog here, but we have somebody who worked in the press and communications office who's starting to tell some stories about just how protected Joe and Jill Biden were, not just at the White House, but on the campaign trail. Take a look. This is an ex-Biden White House staffer. The New York Post has the write-up, ripping former president's team for approving quotes and scripting questions. It was really unethical. And take a look at the pictures. You remember this. when he would do these interviews, you do these press availabilities, and not only the name of the reporter he was supposed to call was written out on the card, but the actual question was already pre-screened, right? We've seen this. We know this is the case. And these journalists, these prostitutes with a byline, were just fine with this. These are people who will lecture you night and day about the ethical demands of the First Amendment and how this is the fourth estate and they're required to speak truth to power. And meanwhile, they were on their knees begging for an opportunity to ask a pre-approved and sometimes pre-scripted question of the leader of the free world. So here's the dude. He appeared on the Young Turks with Cenk Uygur. Is that how we're pronouncing it these days? Let's go with it. And he told all. And God bless this guy. Now, I've got plenty to say about him, but let's have him have his say first.
How do you bully the press? What do you threaten?
Well, look, there were a lot of ways. I mean, like, I thought it was weird that they only did interviews for quote approval. There was this thing in Biden world about quote approval. Everything had to be on quote approval. So you talk to a reporter, but like one person decides what the reporter can use, what quotes they can use. There was weird things like that. I mean, you saw.
I just because you might not speak journalese, let me just explain if you missed it. So somebody may interview the president, and after the interview, then someone from the comms team comes over and looks through what the president said and then has veto power over what the reporter can print or not, or communicate. Okay, I give approval for that quote. Oh, but you can't tell anyone he said this. I mean, it's complete and total manipulation and control of the media. And the real scandal here, just so you know, is the fact that the media was fine with it. The real scandal is we're only hearing about this now from a former staffer at the White House. We didn't hear it on day one from the reporters who cover the White House. You think if Trump tried to do this, or Caroline Leavitt, or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Kayleigh McEnany, or Sean Spicer, you think if they tried to do that, we wouldn't hear about it with a red siren and a breaking news and impeachment articles being drafted? Of course. Listen to what happened here. Listen to what the media was just fine with here.
Them get caught trying to script questions to radio reporters that summer, or summer of 2024. It was very reminiscent to me of being on the campaign in 2020, where these young press staffers in these states like New Hampshire or Iowa or Nevada, they were sort of like dog trained to make the questions conditional for interviews. And I said to them, please never ask the journalist for the questions ahead of time. You can always ask about the topics, but do not ask them for the questions for Dr. Biden. And they said, well, that's what, the other side tells us to do for him. I said, that's okay, fine. That's their problem. My job was to protect my boss, and they could handle we call it the boys' side. The boys' team could do their thing with regard to prepping him for interviews. But I did not want that. I knew from being a former producer at NBC, having long relationships in the press, that was just like 101. It was really unethical to be doing that. But these young kids are really taught to make that a part of their sort of pre-screening for interviews.
All right. Now, I got to jump in here for a minute. Again, this guy's name is Michael LaRosa. And as you just heard, he used to be a producer for NBC News. And then he took this job on the campaign. The story he just told was about the 2020 campaign. And he worked on the comms team for Dr. Biden. That would be the future First Lady Jill. And how they worked with reporters versus how the president's team worked with reporters. And on the president's team, everything was pre-approved, everything was qualified, everything was, and he was sort of quarreling about whether that's ethical for journalists to do that. And understand, he just acknowledged that all of that behavior was unethical, right? He knew better. Now, you would think that after experiencing that on the campaign and seeing how unethical the operation was and how manipulative and bullying the operation was to the media, that this guy, with his integrity and his knowledge and his morals, that he would want nothing more to do with these people, right? It's like, okay, the election's over. I've done my job. I'm going to go back to the private sector. In fact, I'll go back to work for NBC News, and I'm going to speak truth to power and push back against this Biden White House, right? That's what he would do. That's what any normal person with ethics and morals would do. Is that what he did? Let's watch.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that no one in the press complained about it.
Well, I kind of always wondered that myself. Like, why didn't any of these reporters, even in New Hampshire and some of these small town papers or local news, like, why didn't anybody ever say anything? I thought it was so weird at the time, but it was my first presidential campaign. I'm thinking, okay, maybe these people know better than I do. But no, it was just, I learned over the course of the next 4 years, and I learned a lot last summer, just how bad their instincts actually are, and how their instincts really didn't serve the president very well, because no matter how hostile they were or how punitive they were to the reporters covering Biden, his press coverage never improved. In fact, it only got worse.
Yeah. Over the next 4 years, I learned just how bad it would get. So yeah, he's Mr. Morals now. He's Mr. Ethics. He's Mr. Pearl Clutching. I can't believe how they treated the press. And then after that campaign, he was more than happy to take a job with the administration and continue for the next 4 years. It's impressive, dude. Really, you should be proud. Meanwhile, let's walk down memory lane and take a look at some of the moments where President Biden obviously got a little bit of an assist, not just from the media, journalists who were supposed to be covering him, but from the press office who bullied and controlled that media.
Okay. Third, next question. Who do I call on next? Hang on a second. I got my list here. Hang on. I apologize. Aurelia of AFP.
There you go. It was all scripted. It's really something compared to what our current president does with the media. Not only was the list of reporters already pre-approved, but the questions were pre-approved, and in some cases, the questions were pre-scripted, and his answers were pre-scripted. He had his answers on little cards.
Who wishes to get out of Afghanistan? We will find them, and we will get them out. Ladies and gentlemen, they gave me a list here. The first person I was instructed to call on was Kelly O'Donnell of NBC.
The first person I was instructed to call on. Can you imagine the president of the United States, our current president, Donald Trump, ever using language like that? Well, no, because he's not used to being controlled by people. This guy, well, it was second nature, I guess. One more.
Since there's so many people out there, been given a list. Now, how about Chris of the Associated Press? First question.
Given a list. Can't go off the list. All right, one more.
I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here. Reuters, Jeff Mason.
Those reporters should be really proud. Thank God they upheld those journalistic ethics right up to the end, right through that campaign. They're the best. By the way, if you'd like to read about how bad it really was during that campaign, I wrote a book about it. It's called Shameless Liars, and you can get it at Amazon. It's called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. And there's several chapters about how the media was pliant and controlled by the Biden White House and never talked about the failures of the Biden presidency and refused to acknowledge his debilitative state until they couldn't even deny it anymore. It's a pretty good book. It's well researched, and it's the definitive tome on how the media let down the Constitution during the 2024 presidential election. Shameless Liars by yours truly, Larry O'Connor. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. Get it today at Amazon.com. Our favorite senator, of course, as you know, is John Kennedy from the great state of Louisiana, mostly because he gives us great videos to work with, and he didn't let us down yesterday. If you're a witness and you're about to answer questions and you see Senator John Kennedy put on his Harry Potter glasses and start looking at notes, you, my friend, are screwed. You best just get out of there. So let's take a look at what happened.
Professor Franks, is that I think you used the word myth. It is a myth that the Biden administration used government to compel speech, private speech, but that the Trump administration is doing that. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you're allowing your personal political beliefs to affect your objectivity here?
No, I do not. What is guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship
Okay.
industrial complex.
I got that part.
No, I just
got
want
that
to
part.
clarify.
No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said, I'm going to quote your words. Taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy, end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, when the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, by simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court, referring to the current United States Supreme Court, has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well, close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You're trying to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance.
Well,
of this
let me
is.
show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m. Quote, the majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this.
Did you
hearing.
say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but
Yeah,
what is
you
the
said it.
relevance of
Here
that
it
to
is,
this
big as
hearing?
Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me like you have your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, there's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read?
She's starting to feel it now. Why she started really arrogant. Those are my words. Thank you very much. Yes, I did write that. Yes, I'm very proud of it too. Oh wait, I tweet? I don't know. Do they even call it tweets anymore? I whatever it is. A lot? Well, I guess. Why is this relevant? Why is this relevant? Is there a question? Like suddenly the confidence is starting to erode from Dr. Mary Ann Franks. And no, of course, she's not one of those kind of doctors. If you had a heart attack over at her house, you're screwed. She can't even do CPR. It's not that kind of doctor. Who is she, though? Well, she calls herself an expert on misinformation and disinformation. She fashions herself as, well, basically a cyber censor. She knows what you should and shouldn't be able to say online. And damn it, she's going to make sure that all you dirty conservatives are silenced the way you should be. She's part of an organization called the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative. She was testifying because they had a hearing about online censorship and internet censorship. For the good guys, we got Molly Hemingway of the Federalist and Professor Jonathan Turley of George Washington Law School. And, well, she was the representative for those who want to silence people because she thinks their opinions are icky. And you can see that she's starting to lose it here under this withering examination from Senator Kennedy, who, that ruthless bastard, is using the dirtiest tactic of all, quoting what she has said. That's low. All right, let's watch how it ends.
Read that correctly?
Is
That's
there
my
a question that is relevant to this hearing?
Did I read that correctly? Do you really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president
Did you
other
say
state
that?
officials for punishing people for
Did
their
you honestly say that, Professor?
I
And you
believe
expect us,
that the First
as a
Amendment,
Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
I believe that you should take
You
the First
heard of
Amendment
curb your
seriously, sir.
enthusiasm? Here's my saying, curb my nausea.
I believe that you should take the First
Do we need to cue the Larry David music on that one? I don't know, Senator Kennedy. You had me go the exit line. You always have to finish a segment with a punch. You heard of curb your enthusiasm. How about curb my nausea? It's close. I'm going to give it to him. Yeah, the good news is that by quoting her odious opinions back to her, Senator Kennedy got this cyber bully censor to acknowledge that the federal government cannot punish people for expressing their free speech. Thank you. That's the whole point of that hearing. Now, I wonder if she had the same opinions about the Biden administration silencing people expressing their opinion about Hunter Biden's proclivities on his laptop. Or perhaps you and I expressing our opinion about the use of masks or social distancing or the efficacy of the COVID shot. Because the federal government under Joe Biden, they were pretty aggressive getting social media companies like the one you're watching me on right now, unless you're watching on Rumble, to censor us and keep us from expressing our opinion. And so here we are in a Senate hearing, and all John Kennedy had to do was quote this woman's outlandish opinions back to her for her to finally get defensive and wrap herself in the First Amendment and say, I have a right to share my opinions. Thank you. And so do we. What you don't have a right to do is sit on a platform or a pedestal or use the power of the government to decide which opinions are accepted and which are not. And that's our wrap. A $5 super chat from our darling angel, Angela. How's your husband, Angela? Tech Snafu is junior burger with no meat or bun. Yeah, I called it a nothing burger. But there is still something there. I got to find out how Goldberg got in there. SecDef MIA while deputy is on vacation as a triple whopper. Yes, thank you. You want to talk about a burger? How about Lloyd Austin? Forget about MIA. He was having surgery on his bum. Where was the outrage then? Dems are total losers. Well said, Angela. Crying out loud. You're a good sidekick on this show. Another $5 super chat from Angela. Didn't Crockapoop, I think that's Jasmine Crockett, Crockapoop also have a lame response after threatening Elon? She should be censured and sued, but please let her be the face of the Looney Tunes. Yeah, I don't want her censured. Although there is a proposal to censure her right now in the Congress. I want to give her free time. I want her to be able to speak her mind all day long. Thank you, Angela. And a $6 Euro super chat from Alberto Gorin from the Netherlands. Go Orange. Thank you, Alberto. I appreciate it. How do you say thank you in Dutch? I always assume Dutch is very similar to German. $5 super chat from Angela. While not great, Sleazebag Goldberg actually showed not only loyalty and competence in execution of duty, but also successful leadership from the administration. Exactly. I mean, erroneous, unintended consequences, Jeffrey Goldberg. He actually sort of showed a pretty functioning group of professionals caring about their job. I feel good knowing that we're in the hands of Hegseth and Vance. Was my light always sort of tilted a little bit here? Sorry, I just noticed that my light isn't quite on me. Thank you, Angela, for that $5 super chat. Oh my God, look at all the super chats from Angela today. $2 super chat. Love Senator Kennedy. He never let us down. Yeah, it's always gold from the fine senator from the Pelican State. Is it the Pelican State or the Bayou State? Did you know that states have more than one name? For instance, Kevin, what state were you born in?
I was born in Connecticut, unfortunately.
You were born in Connecticut. That's the Constitution state, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not happy with that? My daughter's moving to Connecticut. Can you help her out?
No, I've always kind of been at odds with my my birthplace.
Your New England roots?
Yeah, I've been in Virginia my whole time, and I've always wished I had a little more of a rural upbringing.
I hear you. I'm from Michigan, you know. It's the Great Lakes state. It's the Wolverine state. Virginia is the Old Dominion. But it's also, isn't there it's something state? Anyway, that's all I got.
We got a couple more super chats on.
Oh my gosh, we're getting more super chats. I'll just keep talking and rambling and muttering with Kevin, who gets 10% of all of these chats. What do we got here? Richard Murray. Is it that Richard Murray? Richard Murray with an $11 super chat. That one guy made me feel ashamed of my $10 super chat. What do you mean? What guy are you talking about? I couldn't possibly know what you mean. Boom! No, you guys should not. That is an incredibly generous $100 super chat. We do love the Benjamin. But Richard, no, do not feel bad about that. Here's the thing about this show. Unlike many other colleagues that we know who stream, we don't beg for super chats. We don't ask for super chats. We acknowledge them and we appreciate them, and we act goofy when we get them. But we want now. There may be a time where we do a super chat heavy show, but as of now, we are not. But we are looking for various ways to expand this show. Let's swing over to our friends at Rumble, by the way, and see what those super chats are looking like. For some reason, the interface on our streaming platform here does not incorporate the super chats from Rumble. So let's take a look here. We have a $10 super chat from Arthur Brogdon. Jesus, Larry, I'm gone a few days, and Jonathan is pimping your alleged book. I'm moving on to your alleged mug. Jonathan, is he talking about the boss?
That's the only thing I can think of.
So our boss at Town Hall is Jonathan. And he's been very active on X lately. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Does he have somebody else who's running his account, or does he just have too much time on his hands?
No. It's all him.
Did he tweet out about my about my book? I didn't.
He must have. He could have put it in one of the newsletters too. I'm not sure.
Oh, that would be very kind of him. Well, thank you. Well, let's not. Arthur Brogdon, I appreciate the $10 super chat from Rumble, but let's not piss off the boss. He might be watching. Although, to be fair, he usually watches like the first 30 seconds to make sure that we made it on the air, and then he moves on. It's okay. Honestly, I feel better about that. Another $5 super chat at Rumble from Arthur Brogdon. You should lose the sports coat and just wear the shirt from this morning. Oh, that's right. I put out a video on YouTube this morning just wearing this shirt from my DC office. Do you want me to just do that? It doesn't feel like right. I feel like when we do this show, I feel like I need to have a blazer. It's a little more professional. Kevin, can we show people a little insight into what our conversation is before every show when I ask you about what I'm wearing? Can we just reenact it here?
Sure, go for it.
All right, here it is. Every show, I'm not kidding, every single show, I show up, I've got whatever my shirt and jacket combo is and stuff, and I say, does this look okay, Kevin?
And then I usually say, no, you look like a slob.
See, that's fake news. That's you didn't stick to the script. That's not what you usually say. What do you usually say?
Looks great. Let's go.
Exactly. And you don't even look. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever. It's a visual medium. So I want to hear from the chat. Would you rather I show up every day like this, like I would rather, or would you rather I continue wearing a sport coat and dress shirt? Let me know in the chat. Very important for me to hear from you. Not that I'm going to take fashion advice from you people, but just let me know. All right. And another 10. Boy, Arthur Brogdon is making up for lost time. Where were you, Arthur? Arthur Brogdon, $10 super chat on Rumble. Kevin, here's another $10. Well, that's because he got 10% of the C note we got. So that's nice. So look at you raking in the big ones today, Kevin. What are you going to get?
Add it to the burger fund.
Yeah, Big Macs. Big Macs all around as soon as Lent is over. All right, guys. I think that's good. I think we did it. Oh, everyone says they like me in the casual. They want me in the... Oh, no. Some people want me in the blazer. See... No, I don't live in the Villages. Now, that's just rude, Joe. Is this a Villages shirt? I honestly, to tell you the truth, I usually only wear this shirt when I'm on a cruise ship because I like to just steer right into the sort of, oh, the pineapples. Look at, we're on camera. The pineapples. Do you know about the pineapples at the Villages, Kevin?
I do, and it's probably not an appropriate conversation topic.
But I think that's what the reference was there. It was the pineapples. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Our audience has been growing. Again, really love it. It's fantastic to see. Please recommend us to other people. We love growing our audience, whatever platform you're watching us on. I understand we had like a snafu with Facebook for a couple of days, but I saw that we're back on Facebook. Thank goodness. Love that. Please share our show with people. Recommend us. I feel like if they just catch one show or one clip, they get hooked. It's a fun way to spend the middle of your day. If you're not able to watch us live, though, when you watch us after the fact, share that too. And we'll be back tomorrow, Lord knows. And I think we're done with the Signal story, right? Today was the last day, but it was good. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next time. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.